Welcome, Buff fans and Matt Smith. We finally know officially what bowl game the Buffs are going to and who they're playing, and we've kind of known. I mean, all the signs were pointing towards Alamo, and there was a few things that could have happened that, maybe made something different. But now it's official. The Buffs are going to the Alamo Bowl, December 28th, in San Antonio against BYU, and it's a top 20 matchup. I know fans are not super excited about it in general, just judging off of social media. But it's a top 20 matchup, and it's a great opportunity for the Buffs.
Yeah, look, again, we've talked about this, and it didn't matter who they were playing or where they were playing. It's going to be the last opportunity to watch this senior class and Travis and Shador, right? That's a special
Mhm.
opportunity no matter where you are and who you're playing against. Now, that being said, I understand, from the vacation destination part of it, San Diego or San Antonio, like I get where fans are coming from, but either way, it is what it is now. We've known this for a while. It is the Alamo Bowl. It is BYU. It's a top 25 matchup. I expect that BYU is not going to have a bunch of opt-outs. I'm hoping that they don't. And
Yeah.
so that should make for what will be an entertaining bowl game. And we know everybody in, Colorado's side of things is going to be suited up for now. Coach Prime confirmed that yet again today. So here we go. About 20 days from now, we will be in San Antonio.
Yeah. And look, you mentioned it. Coach Prime, they did a short. I don't even want to call it a press conference because they didn't open up questions for the media, but it was a little availability, getting the two coaches, and I appreciate that they did it. Getting the two coaches on a Zoom, it was the bowl representatives, and getting some comments from the two head coaches, Deion Sanders and Kalani Sitake. And Coach Prime did say, he goes, "Look, we don't tap out," and he goes, "We got a guy that is going to win the Heisman this week, and he's going to play. We got another guy that's going to be drafted number one or number two, and he's going to play. So Travis and Shador will play. We'll see how long." But yeah, to your point, that's how I view it. This is an opportunity to see Travis and Shador one more time in Colorado uniforms, and I'm excited about that. And I've covered two bowl games as the Buffs beat writer, and both were the Alamo, so I was looking forward to something different. I don't love domed stadiums. Um, the Alamo is great. The San Antonio is great. The Alamo Bowl does it great. I don't love a dome stadium, but actually the press box is pretty cool. It's low. It's a really good viewing point for the bowl game, and makes it for a fun one there. But the bottom line to me is you get to see these guys one more time, and that's exciting.
Yeah, the last time they went there was obviously the COVID year. They lost
Yeah.
to Texas
Mhm.
55 to 23. And then before that was 2016. That was their prize for losing the Pac-12 championship was a trip to San
Yeah.
Antonio, and they lost 38 to 8. So two bad memories, and maybe that's just the way it had to go. Colorado had to go back to the Alamo Dome and exercise those demons in order to move forward. And at least that's how I'm going to paint it in my own head. That's what
Yeah.
had to happen. That's why they're here. And yeah, it was not easy watching the Big 12 championship the other day. I kept tuning in and out of it because, I definitely didn't think the two best teams in the Big 12 were represented there. Now that being said, Colorado lost their opportunity at that, and that'll be a carrot for the future that they can pursue. But as far as this goes, there's going to be a lot of hardware picked up between now and then. The Heisman
Mhm.
is just one of the awards. Travis is also up for a litany of them. I imagine he looks like the front runner for the Blitnikoff to me, at
I think
least right
so.
now.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
who knows what else? I mean, he's nominated for what else? The Maxwell, the Bednarik,
Yep.
uh, what
The the
the
Walter Camp,
everything. Yeah, the
Walter Camp
camp
Player of the Year. Um, well, the
and
Horning. He's going to
the
win the
Horning.
Horning Award.
Yeah, and
So
there's one more. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Should be the Thorpe too. Either
yeah,
way, the
the lot impact trophy. He's up for that as well.
That's it. The point was is that there's going to be a lot of hardware. It's going to be a good month of celebration. And look, they get 15 practices leading up to it, and we know they like to practice in the IPF.
Yeah.
It's a dome game. All 15 of those suckers are going to be in the IPF in December in Boulder. I can promise you that much. So, look, you're going to be able to get some recruits in here. National Signing Day just took place, and all that stuff aside, it will be good for recruiting because obviously they're going after a lot of kids from Texas and being down there in San Antonio. I would imagine they'll be able to get some of those kids out to the game a little bit more easily than had it been in San Diego.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's pros and cons to that part of it, but either way, a good preview for BYU next year as well. And the one thing that stuck out to me, Kalani Sitake was very complimentary of Coach Prime and really kind of over the top and saying that he had tons of respect for what he's done with the program and the way they do things. And so that's kind of how you got to feel about Kalani Sitake. They run a really good program over there the
Mhm.
right way, and that team is struggled at the back half of the year, and I think Colorado should open up the favorite in this game.
Yeah, I would think so. Even though I mean they're ranked lower, and Coach Prime, he was complimentary as well. And look, I'm looking at it right here. I mean, this will be the third time in the last 5 years that Kalani has not only won, they've already got 10 wins, 10 plus wins, but they're going to finish in the top 25. This is a pretty good program, so, and traditionally, I mean, I know they had a few down years, before that, but they're always in bowls, and they're always pretty good. Under Lavelle Edwards, they were phenomenal. Under Bronco Mendenhall, they were pretty good. But Kalani's he runs a pretty good program. And look, they were undefeated for a long time this year. They were 9-0 at one point. That's a really good program. Coach Prime very complimentary of Kalani as well. And you mentioned the Big 12 championship, and you're right. Maybe the two best teams weren't there, but I give Colorado a lot of credit for this. Every time Coach Prime's been asked about it, every time Shador's been asked about it, other people have been asked about it, their answer has always been, "We didn't take care of business."
Of
So,
course not.
and I love that that's their answer, because you could sit there. We've seen complaining around the country from other people, right?
Oh, they would never complain. They
And
blew their shot. They
they
knew it.
blew their shot, and a certain head coach of a school down south complaining about
Which one?
uh
Yeah, it feels like everyone in the SEC with three losses is
everyone,
bitching
but
right now.
I mean, Kirby Smart the other day. I mean, with Greg Sankey standing right there
I
saying,
saw that.
"Greg Sankey's sending us on the road every week." It's like, or all season long. It's like, they played 8 games either in Athens or Atlanta, and only one game did they have to go more than a 6-hour drive away from campus. Give me a break,
It's
you
a
know?
hard knock life
Yeah,
for them. Yeah,
and I remember when Georgia. It was years ago, obviously before Kirby, but it was the Dan Hawkins time. I remember when Georgia came out here,
sure.
in 2010, I think it was. I think it was 2010, and that was like their first non-conference game west of the Mississippi in like 20 years or something like that. So yeah, I give a ton of credit. Shador, Coach Prime, everybody, they're not complaining. They've all said, we had our shot, we blew it, and we don't not gonna sit there and depend on other people. And so you can say that wasn't the two best teams. I'm not saying this about you. I've seen it from a lot of fans. You can say it wasn't the two best teams, but it is what it is. And 2 weeks left in the season, the Buffs had it right in their hands, and they fumbled it. I love that comment from Coach Prime. He goes, "We had it in our hands and we fumbled it," and so here you are. And let's be honest, Matt, this is a really nice reward. For people that don't understand, the Alamo Bowl is one of the top bowl games outside the CFP. I tweeted this out a little bit ago. Outside the 12 team playoff, there's only 3 games that involve top 25. Both teams are top 25, and this is one of them. And so it's a really good bowl game. The payoff is really nice. So, I think there's a lot of positive to it. And the one downside, I guess, is that it's a conference opponent, but it's a conference opponent. This is the first time it's been a conference opponent. You haven't seen this team in 36 years. So we were saying before we get on here, it's not like they're facing Utah, who they play every year. You haven't seen this team in 36 years. I think bowl games to me are about. It's cool to see some new opponent you haven't seen. That's what they get here. They haven't seen BYU in a long time.
Yeah, I wanted to bring one thing back around. You mentioned I don't know how much Shadur Travis is going to play. As long as that's a football game, they will play. I have no
I
doubt
would
in my
think so.
mind that they see
Yeah.
that thing through. Yeah, I mean, unless they were blowing them out and there was no reason for it, but I don't anticipate that either because I imagine BYU is going to bring a good effort. The one thing we know about BYU, I mean, unless they had a team that had a lot of top draft picks that were opting out of bowl play, they're
Yeah.
going to play hard, and
Yeah.
it's going to be most of the guys. And look, you got two quarterbacks here going head to head, both with NIL deals, right? You got Shador with everything under the sun, and Retzlaff with Manischewitz, right? So
Yeah.
you got a nice opposite end of the spectrum there.
Yeah, well, and you make a good point. I mean, that's one thing about Kalani Sitake's teams is that they come to play. And look,
Oh yeah.
they're another one of those teams. They were picked 13th in this conference, and they're sitting there at 10-2 right now. Um, you know, what a wild year, by the way. Buffs picked 11th. They're sitting there in that four-way tie as well. Arizona State obviously picked 16th, but yeah, I think it's gonna be a good game, and I am curious how long they'll play, and you probably make a good point that as long as it's a game, they'll probably play. There's some signs to me that point to them playing the whole game. I still question will they, but there's some signs such as um look, we know because they've talked about throughout the year that these guys are aware of numbers and where they rank on things, right? So, Coach Prime's mentioned, had we knew if we knew Travis was, at this, we would have gone for this. And there's times we knew we were trying to get him his 100 yards. They know Shador needs 2 touchdown passes to set the all-time Colorado record. I would bet he's in there at least long enough to get 2 touchdown passes. We know because Shador's mentioned it many times. They really, really, really want Jimmy Horn to have a big game. Shador's not going to get out after the first quarter if Jimmy Horn's, sitting there at 3 catches for 40 yards. They want Jimmy Horn to have a big game. They want Travis Hunter to have a big game.
Yeah, I hear you. The priority for them is going to be winning, and then if they can
Yeah.
get all those things accomplished along the way, then they'll take care of it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, look, I think it's just more about finishing it out the right way for the team. I don't think it has anything to do with numbers or padding. I think just in the flow of everything, you'll probably eclipse all those if Jimmy's back and healthy.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to I'm not trying to hint that they would be padding, but there's certain things you can do to try to get people involved. And I think that's my point is that they do want Jimmy to have a game,
sure,
and I do think they're going to want to do things. And sorry to cut you off, but
no,
I didn't want to hint that I was saying they're going to pad stats. I think they're in the flow of things. I think they want certain things to happen if it can.
yeah. I mean, how many times did Shador throw 2 touchdown passes?
I
Darn
think
near
every
every
game.
game. Yeah. So that's my point is I don't think you have to
Yeah.
try too hard, in that regard. But yeah, things like Jimmy and getting some of those, banged up
Yeah.
guys back. I would hope to see Preston Hodge at that point as well. He was also out for a little while.
Yep.
I was thinking about it. They're putting 2 corners in the NFL and at least 3 in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
That's a pretty important thing for recruiting. And the other part of it, I saw a bunch of these guys who were jumping in the portal, thinking to myself, "Man, if you're a transfer corner, why are you not calling Colorado
Right.
after what they have done?" There's at least a phone call that goes in to gauge interest if you're a corner that's legit in the transfer portal. And we'll see what happens. Portal opens what tomorrow?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So here we
Yeah.
go. It'll be hot and heavy. But look, I mean, I think the bowl practices are important, and I'll reiterate because you do get a chance to bring some of the younger guys in and get them at least kind of their feet wet with what the standard is, depending upon how playoffs finish up. Now, Juju's team advanced, so I imagine it'll be a little bit before he gets here, right?
Yeah, and there was a couple of those guys that they signed the other day that as of signing day last week, they could have played as they had a chance to play as many as 3 more games. So a couple of these guys may not finish
Yeah.
their high school seasons until like literally a week before the bowl game, and so yeah, and if you're that guy, like I think one of them is who's the receiver, Quanell Farrakhan Jr. I
Hmm.
think he's one of those guys that if his team keeps winning, I think they won the other day, that he could play the championship game on the 21st. The Alamo Bowl is the 28th. Well, I'd imagine a guy like that is still going to want to be like, yeah, I want to go participate, even if it's a walk on or walk through. I want
Yeah.
to go participate for at least a practice or two. So yeah, they're not going to get a ton of practice, but I think them just being around the team, even if it's for a couple of days or being able to, be there on the sidelines for the game is a big deal.
No question. And, outside looking in, it was fun to watch the CFP process shake out. I think the one thing that we can say for certain moving forward, if they stick with this format for the Big 12, and we'll see what happens after revenue sharing, but plan on winning your conference if you want to get in, if you're a Big 12 team.
Yeah.
I would say that that's going to be the safest way. That you will maybe there'll be some years where there's another at-large team, and maybe if things shake out differently. But I would say, based upon what we've seen, at least in the position the Big 12 is in, until things change, plan on having to win your conference to be a CFP team.
Yeah, I mean, especially with 9 conference games, right? And you have that extra opportunity to play a tough game and lose it. And so, um, I I think to me, I think the Big 12 was a win or two away from somebody and having that second team in there. I think if Colorado wins one more game, I think they might be in there. I think
Well,
that
they'd have won the
Kansas
Big
game.
12.
What's that?
They would have won the Big 12 if they
Well,
won one more game.
true, but I mean, I think they dropped pretty far after they lost to Kansas.
Hmm.
Let's say they beat Kansas, they would have kept going up. I think they were 16 at the time that they played Kansas. You win that, and you're sitting there at 10 going into the Big 12 title game, and even if you lose it, I still think that they're a potential playoff team. And so, and not just Colorado. I mean, Iowa State. You win one other game. Maybe they're in there. BYU one other game. Maybe
They
they're
got
in there.
their
So
ass kicked. They don't deserve to be in that conversation.
yes, on that one day, you're right. But I'm just saying, it's I get your point, but I'm saying I do think one win here or there from one of those other teams, and you might have had that second team in there at some point. So we'll never know. And
Hmm.
uh, I don't. I'll say this: our buddy Joel Klatt tweeted this out. The format's flawed, big time.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
to look at this right now and see Penn State, who just lost that game. I mean, look at their path. If you're Penn State, you're like, awesome, let's go.
They'll never make it. It's Penn State. James
Yeah, I know.
Franklin can't win a big game. But yeah, no, I hear you.
I hear you, but I mean, but still, the point is that should Penn State should not be in that position. They didn't earn that position.
As impressive as it was that Oregon won the Big Ten in their first year in the conference and they're the only undefeated team in the country, I shed no tears for Dan Lanning and them
Yeah.
for having the
Oh,
one
I know.
seed and then having to deal with what they have to deal with afterwards. That's a
Yeah.
shame. That's a shame.
It is funny though that there are two Pac-12 teams in the CFP a year after there's no Pac-12. Two Pac-12
Yeah.
teams win Power Five conferences that aren't the Pac-12 this year. So,
Yep.
um, you know,
And for us Pac-12 mourners, we all noticed that. Okay.
yeah. Oh, it
Yeah.
was yeah.
Yeah.
That oh, most of the Pac-12 was kind of garbage this year. Most of the I'm saying Pac-12, obviously,
Hmm.
but most of it was pretty garbage. I mean, you look at, uh, you know, for the bowl process, and we've gone over it, but you take out Oregon and Arizona State, who made the CFP, and it was Colorado, and then you had Washington State, who was 8-4 and really kind of garbage at the end of the year. I mean, they lose to Wyoming, a bad Wyoming team in the last game. They've lost three in a row, and then there's three other teams at 6-6, and then
Yeah.
five teams don't even make the bowl eligible. So the Pac-12 again was sort of garbage this year, but you did have two teams win conference titles. So
Yeah, I don't know about garbage, but I mean, that's about an average year in the Pac-12.
well,
Is it not? You had what, two dominant teams,
I
like
guess
three in the next tier, and
I
then a
guess
couple
not
of
garbage,
middling
but
teams.
I mean
Yeah.
you had
You want to see a garbage year, you look at the Mountain West.
that's true.
That's a garbage year. CSU finished third at 8-4.
That's true.
That CSU team.
That's true.
It's a bad conference. Anyway, the point is that Colorado's going to San Antonio, and Coach Prime is taking Peggy to a bowl game. God willing, she can get on a private jet and fly down there. He said that again, that they're going to
Yeah.
get her down there, hopefully, and that'd be great. And the one cool part about the Alamo Dome is it's like stepping back into time in a way when you go in there, because it's just they really haven't done much to it. At least when I was there in 2016, I only ever went in 2016. I know you did both.
Yeah.
But when I went there, it needed a little love, and I imagine it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, 2020 again, a lot can happen in 4 years. I don't know what they've done in 4 years, and 2020 is such a blur. I don't remember it much
It's like
because
a bit of an arena league vibe, don't you think so?
yeah,
Like an AFL vibe,
yeah,
like
it is.
XFL.
And Ralphie was there in 2016. I
No,
wonder,
she ain't coming.
she ain't
No,
coming. I doubt it.
mm-mm.
But
No, 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 no,
um,
no.
I will say my favorite thing, not favorite, but one of my memories of the 2016 game that I hope they bring back this year was, do you remember the M&Ms with Mike Gundy and Mike McIntyre's faces on them?
Yeah, I do.
They
I
had
do.
they had the orange M&Ms for Oklahoma State. They had white M&Ms, or maybe they were yellow, for CU, and
Yeah.
they had imprints of Mike Gundy and Mike McIntyre's faces on it.
That was the
I'd
one.
like to see some M&Ms with Kalani Sitake and Deion Sanders on them.
Well, that is like the worst swag. That's my only criticism of the Alamo Bowl for being as prestigious as it was. They are not known for the media swag, which who cares? But I did notice on the credentials, you mark the box for cookies on there? I'm guessing that's the
Yeah.
media swag this year is cookies,
Well, they had
which is
that
hey
last
man.
time too. They
Oh,
had that
did
last
they?
time too.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
we got a Tumblr in 2016, and you know,
Is all you got last time cookies?
I don't remember.
Hmm.
I don't remember
Maybe a
honestly.
mouse pad?
Maybe I don't remember. I'm not too worried about media
No,
swag.
no, I don't
It
I
was
don't
more
care.
about I just wanted to experience something different, and but I'm excited about this one, and I know a lot of fans aren't, but again, me growing up LDS, being LDS, not a big, I've never been a big BYU fan, but I have a ton of friends that are, and it's fun. I mean, I'm excited for it. I've followed BYU pretty much my whole life. I mean, growing up, the only college football games I ever really went to was Air Force at BYU at Air Force. I never went to CU games because I don't know why my dad didn't take me, but our church would get a block of tickets whenever BYU every other year would go play Air Force because they were in the WAC together, and I'd go see BYU play Air Force. So those were the only college football games I saw growing up down at the academy. So I followed BYU forever, and I told you before we started here, I've thought I've wanted this matchup for a long time. Beyond all that, because of the fact that I think that'd be a fun regional matchup, and they're the only team, I think, FBS team like in a neighboring state that CU hasn't played in the last 30 some years, and so um, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a fun matchup, and it's I know they play again next year, but they're not going to play with Shador and Travis, so it'll be totally different teams next year.
I am just grateful we get one more chance to watch this team play and one
Yep.
more chance to watch Shador and Travis play. It'll be real special, and I guess we'll figure something else out to do in San Antonio.
I will say this one other incentive that they might have in this one, and I think they're competitors, and so they don't. I'm not sure they need a ton of incentives, but one of the knocks on Coach Prime after he left Jackson State was that he lost both of the Celebration Bowls that he took Jackson State to, and so I don't know if that's something that bothers him at all that he's 0-2 in bowls, but he's got an opportunity to change that.
Yeah, I'd put pretty high confidence in them closing this thing out the right way because this is the chapter, right? This is the final chapter. The home game was like, okay, preparing everybody. Now here's a month,
Yeah,
soak it up. And now it's, pretty much all over after that. He was over there at the Unitas banquet telling Antonio Pierce, the Raiders head coach, to draft his sons. And, I imagine with the recruiting and spring ball, a big part of what he's going to do the next couple of months is going to be campaigning for those guys, not just
yeah,
for Shador and Travis, but for everybody else. I mean, you got the Shrine Bowl coming up, and I saw Wonkwo was going to go to the Hula Bowl and
yeah.
Combine, et cetera, et cetera. So he's got a very, very busy offseason coming up. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and Coach Prime, one cool thing that he mentioned in the Alamo Bowl media thing today was it's kind of full circle because obviously he started coaching his sons while they were living in Texas. They get to have their last game together in Texas, so that's pretty cool. And I think it'll be well attended. The attendance record is 66,000. 2007 it was Penn State and against Texas A&M. I wonder if they'll break that record. Because I think there's gonna be a ton of CU fans at this game, and BYU travels well, and so I wonder if they'll have a shot to break that record.
Last thing here, at least for me, what are your biggest questions about the game heading into it? Like first thoughts about the actual game?
Um, I think it's too early because I want to look at BYU a little bit more, but I guess main thing, the biggest question would be how serious CU takes this game. Would be my first thing. And I didn't question it during the regular season, but there's been sort of that finality feeling around this program that I do wonder, if there's going to be any of that. And frankly, Matt, you mentioned the portal opens tomorrow. I'm curious to see how many guys actually jump in the portal, and what this roster is going to look like, and if there's any key players that could totally change the opinion of the game. Is if you have um, I don't even want to throw out names that's unfair to guys, but if you have somebody that maybe has been a key rotational guy or even a starter that jumps in the portal here between now and the bowl game. So um, I think there's a lot of things to watch over the next couple of weeks before we actually get to the game.
Yeah, on paper, BYU had a good defense in the regular season, right? Had some good defensive numbers. Offensively, kind of middle of the road, nothing too fancy. They got a couple of guys that'll be in the NFL for sure. You got an experienced quarterback there, so I don't know. It should be interesting. Houston did give them a good run for their money in that final game of the regular season, though. So it's not like they're playing their best football at the end of the
No,
year. I think CU's got a really good chance to go in there and win that football game. One of my biggest questions is what do they do at right tackle? How do they handle that, knowing that Philip Houston is out? I'm not sure. Are they going to go to Resnick? Is Khalil Benson going to be back? I know I saw him in a walking boot. I'm not exactly sure. And then it's kind of one of those things you're going to be off for over a month or just about a month
about a
by
month.
that
Yeah,
point in time.
yeah,
So, how quickly can you get back into a rhythm, especially since they're such a pass heavy offense and
right.
they finished with the worst rushing attack in the country again for the second consecutive year? BYU did not. Now they're not a juggernaut on the ground, but they have some more options than Colorado does. So, how you stop the run and how you run the ball after an idle month, middle of the holidays. I imagine that BYU is going to try and do what all the opponents this year, for the most part, tried to do to Colorado, which is just suck the air out of the game and run the football up and down the field,
Yeah,
extending drives, keeping Shador on the sidelines. But, that'll be interesting how Coach Prime keeps everybody in rhythm, especially because you, to your point, have a lot of guys looking at pro football and the rest of their lives on this team after
hmm
this year, right? 21 seniors in this class and other guys going to the league. So, it will be interesting. It's focus, and I'm not worried about them not being focused. It's just a rhythm and how you handle practice and how you handle hitting, and
right.
you got 15 of those, and so you got to manage them wisely.
Yeah, and yes, and I agree with you on the focus, except bowl games are just so tricky because, like we saw it in 2016, and there were a lot of things going on with that team between the loss to Washington and then when they got to the Alamo Bowl. But one of them was, Mike McIntyre was picking up some Coach of the Year awards and was flying around places, and it's award season, right? And so it feels sort of final, and we know Shador was in Baltimore the other day. He's been in Vegas. He went from Vegas to Baltimore. He's going to be. They're both. He and Travis going to be in New York this week. So there's a lot of traveling back and forth. Coach Prime hasn't been around. So it feels disjointed. It's not It's out of the routine, right? They've been in a routine for the last few months where it's, you play a game, have your day off, come back on Monday, or whatever it is. I think they watch film on Sunday actually, but have the Monday off day. But they were in a rhythm, and so now you kind of get out of that rhythm and get out of sync. And so um, I think that they'll be focused, but I think that sometimes human nature is there's some things that can take away that focus.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I just said, except I
Yeah,
expect them to rally back because it'll be the last time together. Now,
it
of
could be,
course,
but we saw it in 2016. I mean, I think that was now they were banged up too that game, and there were other things going on. But I think part of that 2016 thing was they were really happy to be there, and there were a lot of guys that were just kind of distracted.
yeah, I don't think that's gonna be this team. Is just gonna be happy to be there.
Yeah,
I think this team is going to want to take care of business, maybe because they're upset about how the end of the season finished, and they felt
maybe.
like they
Yeah,
they should have kind of chewed off more. And I imagine BYU is going to be the same. So that's why I think that expect the fight from them. And the bowl games are interesting because sometimes you see bowl games get away from teams really fast. So if you're not careful, and CU's struggled with slow starts at times this year, that is a game that right away you've got to set a tone in. I can already tell you, going up against a team like BYU, they will have great fans there. They will travel really well.
hmm
It's not a cheap trip down there. I'll just say that.
yeah.
It's definitely not. So I
Not for
am
us.
curious. Well, Coach Prime said today, that Colorado fans, they're going to sell it out. That would
Yeah,
be an impressive achievement at a neutral site game. I don't know if they're going to quite do that, but we'll see how we'll test the depth of the Prime fan in Texas around the holidays if they think they're going to sell that out.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. I mean, like I said, BYU travels well also, and you're gonna have a lot of Buff fans. I don't know how many will travel there, but I
It's just
think
not
you
an easy drive. That's all. It's like a 14-hour drive from Denver.
sure, but I mean, you also have, I chatting with Rick George about it too. He goes, "Look, there's also a ton of Cowboy fans that
Yeah.
love Prime, and there's Shador. not Travis, but Shador and Shiloh. They played high school ball in Dallas, not too far away. There's a
So
lot of
some
these
looky
guys.
loos is what you're saying. Not necessarily BYU
Exactly,
fan or Colorado fan, but some
exactly.
looky loo. All
Right.
right. All right.
I mean, for the Dallas fan that they grew up, they love Coach Prime or Shador, and it's a, was it 3-4 hours from San Antonio? Sure. I mean, why not drive down there? And actually had a, it was funny. One of my BYU friends texted me after the bowl was announced. Man, he goes, tickets are 95 each. I'm like, well, that's about a third of the price to see the Buffs in
Yeah.
Boulder. So that's a pretty good price, actually.
All right, so it's 64,000 spectators for a typical football game and marching band competitions and expandable to hold 72,000. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
the Alamo Bowl website, I will say they have on the attendance page,
Yeah.
it says 65,000 capacity.
Okay.
So,
So there you go.
and their highest was 66 in 2007. So
Your streak of your streak of making friendly wagers with me is not great right now. Should we make it third?
I'm not doing a friendly wager. No,
You're over that.
I don't
Not
know.
I've beaten
What
you too many times this year.
are you talking about friendly wager on whether it sells out or not?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what do you think? 60 plus?
I think it'll probably be pretty close. I'm not saying that they won't sell it out. That's just a lot of people, especially that time of year.
I'd be
That's all.
stunned if it's not 60.
Okay.
Now, the lowest attendance,
That sounds about right.
even in 2020, they got 10,000 there when fans were, it was limited, remember?
Yeah.
So city mandated capacity 11,000 because of COVID, and they had 10.8 there.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's
So
pretty close to sold out either way.
trying to see, let's see, they've been there. Oklahoma State, when they played in 2016, it was 59,800.
Yeah.
This will be higher attendance than that.
Oh, for sure. So it could be pretty close, if not completely sold out.
I'm going to guess it's one of the top five most attended Alamo Bowls ever.
That sounds about right. That sounds. I
Number
didn't realize it was only 65.
and number five is 65,277. So that's a sellout.
It'll probably be right around there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go sellout. I'll do a
Yeah.
wager with you. Yeah, I
All
think
right,
it's sold
sounds good.
out.
I'll give you a chance to go. I'll give you a chance to get it back. Well,
Double
I
or
mean, look,
nothing.
you can announce the official sellout either way, right? So what's the
Right,
difference? Like the
right,
UCLA sellout.
right. I bet you they sell it out. I'm going with that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised. And look, I mean, hey, if you're in the San Antonio area or you're anywhere close, 1 2 hour drive, I mean, let's our own little marketing campaign for don't miss this because it's
Yeah.
your last time you're going to be able to see these guys like this, and this has been pretty special. And
Hmm.
I'm really not concerned too much about. Yeah, I know there's other stuff going on, but once they get back to practice, all those guys understand that you can't lay a dud or an egg here because this is the last film you're going to give scouts, and
Right.
scouts are going to eat up every last possible part of available resource that they have in your evaluation. And so around the holidays, a lot of people are going to be tuning in for that one. I can guarantee you for sure
Yeah.
because they do every time they're on TV. And this is a good opportunity. Guys like Jimmy, you said, think about some of the other seniors, Shane Cokes potentially, a guy like that, and Bentley, Hill Green, I think of, and you can go down the list.
Well, the attendance part of it
Shiloh.
too. Yeah, the attendance part of it too. I think BYU is a big factor in that. Keep in mind, I mean, that fan base, they were super excited to finally be in a power conference, right? And you look at their most recent bowls, they've always felt slighted because they win 11 games in 2020 and they're in the Boca Raton Bowl. In 2021, they win 10 games during the Independence Bowl. 2022, they're in the New Mexico Bowl. They haven't been in a big bowl like this. Their fans are going to show up for a
Oh
top
yeah.
end bowl like this, and so um, I think that's a factor too. That their fans are going to show up. The LDS community is big in Texas, and so they're going to have a lot of people there at that game as well. So that's going to make it fun. And one other thing, real quick, one last thing for me is Kalani Sataki made a good point on the press thing today. Was he said, we had a lot. Well, the one thing about them being in the same conference, even though they didn't play, he goes, we had a lot of crossover games. He goes, so I watched a lot of Colorado film this year and studying other opponents. I imagine CU's done the same thing. So they probably know quite a bit about each other, even though they haven't played because they've seen each other a little bit. So
Yeah.
that can make it fun for game planning and things like that as well.
Yeah, and look, every time They won coming off both buys this year. Or no, they lost to Kansas State. No, they were a little
Yeah,
sloppy coming off both buys. So hopefully they can figure out how to be a little sharper coming off the break.
yeah. Well, hopefully they'll be right.
Well,
And
because I
we'll,
expect BYU to be is my point.
yeah, I would expect to. And you're
Yeah.
right, BYU didn't play great down the stretch. They lost two in a row, and then I wouldn't say lucky, but Houston gave them every opportunity in that one. So they didn't play a great final three games, but I expect a better BYU.
The truth is that if CU brings the requisite energy and intensity, they should win this game, in my opinion, big.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it all plays out. And look, this is also the last taste of football for Shador and Travis and everybody being together, and I think
Yeah.
that means a lot too. So there's gonna be a lot of emotion behind it either way.
Well, we'll talk about it closer to the game. I think the big thing to watch between now and then is as the portal opens tomorrow, if there's any of these key buffs that jump in the portal and won't be in the bowl game. So we'll keep an eye on that. And Matt, we'll come back at some point with more analysis. And um, we're heading to New York this week, so we got some Heisman Trophy stuff to talk about as well.
Yeah, for sure. We got to do our end of season awards at some point, and
Yeah,
there's a couple other fun topics that we've been kicking around behind the scenes that we want to do maybe before the bowl game. So we'll figure it out.
yeah, awesome. Well, have a great day, and we'll see you at some point this week.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy.